Okay, here we are for the epilogue episode. We were getting a little sloppy there and play at the end just because I knew we were close, but a little embarrassing. Lost what? Three
Tot.
Panzer divisions there, another four there.
Bereit zum
Probably
Ausrücken.
lost some Pgrens. Let's check our casualty from that war. Yeah, lost about 250,000 men to the United States, and most of those are just from unit surrounds that should not have happened. Honestly, I probably should have switched to a broad front planning based attack, but I didn't. So at this point, we're now up to almost 1,000 factories with the United States factories. The reason why we're going to be in the campaign here is the Raj is left, State of Japan is left. It's nobody big. It's nobody. It's just going to be a hassle going over and having a set of naval invasions. We've proven here if you can invade the United States, you can invade anybody. When it comes to naval invasions, you know, just to prove it, we'll take a look at Japanese fleet numbers. Japanese fleet numbers are next to nothing. They literally have 3 carriers and a single battleship, all of much older variety, versus us and our fleet. We've got, the 7 heavy battleships that are tier 3 and completely wonderful. Excuse me. And then we still have our 6 carriers. Moment of silence for the Europa and the Peter Strasser that were lost in war against the British. But the rest have survived. Of course, Raider was our main fleet admiral, doing everything. Got to rank 7, which ended up being 4 attack, 8 defense, 4 maneuvering, and 6 coordination, which I think is kind of humorous because, yeah, it's still aggression. Oh, it's only a 20% increase. Okay, I was thinking of bold attack, where it's a 50% increase. It's like how, those are pretty good odds to be leveling up constantly, but no, it's way less than I thought. In this war. Just kind of a quick recap of how it went down. We did a historical Germany, as you are aware, when it comes to the focuses, war timings, things like that. Of course, after we beat Russia, that is ahistorical. Then we went ahistorical. We did a second Battle of Britain in 44, won air superiority, invaded around Hull and Newcastle in the eastern coast, took out Great Britain. Rommel did a very late Africa campaign. I made a house rule where I wasn't going to, just dump a bunch of troops into Africa as soon as I beat France, because that to me would not be too interesting. And because of our heavy naval buildup, fuel was a significant factor. We were just constantly building synthetic refineries and trading for as much as we could for many years until we basically got to a point of post-scarcity. Also, we had a medium tank shortage that lasted several years that we also finally got to post scarcity on. But those things made for the best invasion of Germany I've ever played. It was the most fun just because I actually had to think. I was just was not rolling over the Soviets like you normally do. I was making my encirclements, kind of carefully looking at it, and not all my attacks were working. I remember Guderian was trying to get through the marshes and take Gomo. I mean, that was the sticky situation. We just could not do it. We tried to take Gomo probably like 7 times. Finally got it through basically outflanking it. But this was a real rough pitch battle. I didn't know if I was going to pull it off or not. Frankly, for a bit there, just because we were so behind. The Soviets were actually replenishing in the field. They had better tanks. They were producing the T-34 at one point. The T-34 was pretty stinking good and actually better than when we were fielding at that point. Because I also imposed limitations on how well I could design the tanks. I was just using the Panzer IV OS-A that you get from the game, very close support, or very soft attack focused tank, just all over. Just to make sure, because let's face it, you can, get your earliest tank design, just design an uber great tank and roll over people.
Befehle.
But so I kind of imposed that limitation that would help things feel more historical there. And we had 3 years of fighting in Russia, which is about I think one more than I've ever had before. I think I've had a 1941 where it goes a little bit into 42 and then you win. But this one, we had different offensives. You could kind of feel the tempo shift back and forth, and with the new weather system and new supply system, I would choose to go into winter quarters, kind of drag it out a little bit. So I was very happy with that. It was a lot of fun to do. The invasion of the United States, we took, originally Iceland because we needed the naval range. Then Newfoundland, I think I messed up and didn't actually record that. And then we had a few misstarts with my CPU trying to commit suicide on me. but then we've collapsed the United States here. The other thing I want to go through is kind of look at my generals, just because,
Zuhören.
well, let's look and see what's in our armed forces. I think everyone's just going to be using kind of the best stuff. Yeah, best. Still a little short on replaces. Even then, we don't have that many factories on flat guns. We're still almost up to tier 3 flat guns. Artillery guns, we still have some tier 2s, not many. It's almost all tier 3s. Got the amphibious tanks, got Yag Panthers fully. The upgunned broom bars are only about a third of our force. The Whirlwinds were probably the MVP of this fight here. And yeah, nothing but Panthers. These are just in recon tanks. Yeah, we never upgraded to better light tanks, but just was not necessary. Because one of the other challenges, yeah, almost just under half of the awesome mechs. One of the challenges was, of course, doing the Naval Germany. Was we did spend so much time doing naval techs. When you just do a U-boat strategy, I mean, it's just upgrade some submarines, upgrade some snorkels, upgrade some, better torpedo tech, and that's it. Where instead I had a much more spread out tech. We did the battleships and the better armor. We made it to all the way to tier 3 carriers, tier 3 destroyers. We had something, better sonar. I mean, better light guns, better heavy guns. We put some time into techs that, were quote unquote not useful, or not quite as much useful long term. Because I know, of course, one of the strategies you can do, and it's, you just put a few just subs here in the English Channel. You just make a million naval bombers. You get air superior over there, and you just bomb everything that comes into, and that's how you just wipe out big amount of navies. And while we, that was a significant portion of our strategy, at least we had our fleet out there, and there was chance for conflicts, and the UK was fielding a real number of fighters, so there were chance for conflicts, and that's how I did lose those two carriers, the Strasser and the Europa. But so, yeah, we've got our big Germany. Shout out to the MVP of this match, Iran. The Allies used to be coming hard for it in the West, and they were being pushed back from West and East. And they managed to hold, and the Soviets actually declared war on that side. They got dragged into that war, and, I'll let them have a good chunk of Iran, or the old Soviet Union, because why not? So, let's take a look at some of the figures here. Got 500,000 casualties from the entire. No, probably more than that. Because no, it's definitely more than that. Because I had 1,000,000 casualties from fighting the Soviets that are not represented here because they've completely capitulated. United States ended up having about 6 million. I was pretty pleased with the Soviet buildup. Of course, it's AI. They're not using the best unit templates, division templates, but it's much better than what they had before. Specifically, just because they were. I think when I started the campaign, they actually had 40, or the Barbarossa, they actually had 40 tank divisions, which I was rather impressed by. Most of the time, the Soviet Union, you'd have like 5, and they're all light tanks, or 10. And they had 40 medium tanks specifically, in addition to light tanks and motorized. And those medium tanks actually made it pretty interesting for quite a while. So I was very happy with that. The game's definitely, my biggest complaint with the game, of course, has been the AI, and that's, I think, a lot of people's biggest complaint. The fact is, as humans, we're just going to be smarter than the AI. But the reality, this AI, even compared to other video games, it used to be pretty stinking derpy. The battle plan system, I just don't think is the greatest. It just encourages World War I, broad front. It's not easy to use. It's not intuitive to use. It's not easy to make encirclements with. And this game is all about encirclements. And the other issue is the AI is always just selecting troops. Okay, go handle that front, go handle that front, which will cause a lot of units to, strat redeploy to the front, get attacked easily because they're only at 20% org, and then, kind of puts them in the cycle of, well, now those troops are getting encircled or overrun. That's why one of the things I like doing is like going into winter quarters and stopping everything, because that gives the AI a chance to, build up entrenchment, maybe build forts if they wanted to. They don't. I think that's really something they should look into, especially when you're losing a war, and especially the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union, they were getting all sorts of fort building bonuses. I mean, like 60% speed increases and things like that. I mean, you could be popping out a good wall of forts during the winter here and making it kind of difficult to crack, which is something I'll probably aim to do in a Soviet playthrough. I think I'm going to be doing a Soviet playthrough next. Not 100% sure, but That's kind of what's going to tickle my fancy. Just because I know the AI Germany is a lot better than the AI Soviet Union. So by playing as Soviet Union, I think that, and kind of with historical limitations, I'm gonna figure out and set. If I let myself just produce a bunch of good tanks from day one, um, Soviet Union's gonna have nothing to worry about from Germany. But if I limit myself to like the vast majority infantry, or if I say, all my light tanks need to be, or all my tanks need to be light tanks until the invasion, that'll probably, make it a lot more interesting. I may also do something with the fighters. I may not, because the Soviet Air Force does have a lot of malices at the get-go. So here's kind of the finale of the game. The last thing I want to do is look through the generals, just because this is the game I had the most high-ranked generals in ever. So
Alright.
look through, yeah. So you know what? What's the best way to do this? Let's just go in here. So Runstedt ended up being level 4. He only ranked up once during Barbarossa. Von Kluge, I think ranked up once also. And our two best field marshals ended up being von Bock and von Witzelben. Why? Because we were using them as generals that leveled up a whole bunch into level 6. Then we promoted them to field marshals. Just very good supply consumption stats off of them. And that attack is just insane. And only one of those points is coming from the offensive doctrine. So, they were at 8 skill attack naturally before, of course. That has a lot to do with me running bold attack on skill up. It's not an accident. It's Germany were constantly on the attack, constantly go, go, go. So, and also, I think that was kind of historical. The Germans were not great at logistics, so I didn't want to be making things too easy that way. Guderian failed horribly around Gomel several times, so I got him out of there. Not because he's got bad stats, or anything like that, but just a little bit for RP reasons there. Also, as a Blitzkrieg specialist, he doesn't actually improve because he's a theorist. So these guys I was leveling up, level 6, to see, well, maybe they'll get to 8. If they get to 8, I can make them, expert level or genius level advisors at something, so that might be kind of cool to take a look at, but we never got there. But let's take a quick look. What could von Bock have done? You could have done offense. Okay, great. I already have, 10% offense from Halder, so you would have had to get up higher. Better morale, maybe. Infantry expert, we already have a, was it expert? Yeah, expert, which is the 10-15. So if you got to genius, that'd be 15-20. Okay. Same von Witzelben. You could have done only the same exact 3. Looking at some other ones here, let's get down to our actual generals that are selected. Here we go. Hermann Hoth is our greatest German panzer general out of the war. But we didn't need to get up to expert armor division, or because genius armor division, because Rommel already has that slot for some reason. Is considered a genius despite the fact he starts off at level 4. Rommel also levels up quite a few times in the North Africa campaign, got up to 8 attack, which is pretty impressive. Hoth definitely has more stats overall. Look at that 7 planning. And Manteuffel got up there to 6. Actually, Manteufel's stats of 7-4, 5-4, pretty great stats, because if he had leveled up again, he's 1 level below Hoth. He could have got 8 or 9 attack, which would have been phenomenal. Gotthard Heinrici is our best supply general by far. He was the general that was doing all the naval invasions with our Seelande Marine divisions that started off with just the Amtracs, then got to Amtracs and the Schwimm Panthers. Van Manstein also gets the award for most times, I think, wounded and or sick in this campaign. I think he was at least out twice, wounded for 90 days, and I think he might have even been for a third time. I can't quite remember, because Manstein normally ends up as being one of my most highly leveled commanders, just because he's got so many good stats across the board. But I didn't even get him leveled up to a Panzer leader, just because he was out wounded so much. When I found kind of a neat change in things. Schultz here. Ended up being pretty good stats, 7.325. It's Germany. We don't care the most about defense in this situation. Yodel ended up being our Mountaineer guy out of nowhere. Still just absolute terrible attack. Not great defense, but his planning and his logistics were pretty good. Von Lieb ended up doing our, Fortress Europe defense, had to put down several invasions of France there. And Georg Hans Reinhardt ended up being our guy that seized Norway and Denmark. And then just went on the defensive and held it there. So, overall, a very good campaign. I will take a save here just for kicks and grins. I don't think I'll ever use it, but you know what? I'll keep one around just in case there's something I want to test with. Ultimately, let's take a look at some stats from New England because we did have some significant air war going on. And we were about 2-1 in the sky with planes. Is Germany, because we were able to get through pretty much the entire tech tree. I was building these, of course, our tier 3 fighters that just completely won everything against Britain. And then, heavy fighters are great, pretty good range. And yeah, we even started making some jet fighters, so. Overall, very happy with the campaign. I do like the tank designer. It's a lot of fun. I will say, though, the tank designer definitely added a lot of power to the player over the AI, hence why you saw me impose my limitations on the kind of tanks I could design. But just because the other reason is it's so much cheaper to design high quality tanks with the tank designer than it was under the old system and feeding in the points. Just the power the tank increases per point of army experience you feed in is so much more with the new system. But overall, very good changes. I liked it a lot, and we were starved on army experience for quite a bit of this campaign. Why? Because in a normal Germany setup, you would go with 3 army advisors. Instead, I went with Gunther Luhens here for the extra naval experience and naval range. So that cut down on it. But then also, I took a lot longer to get these German advisors going than a normal person would have in a campaign. But overall, very fun campaign. Thank you very much. I would ask for input on the next one to play, but the reality is I'm already going to be starting this probably later today or tomorrow. My next campaign of whatever game I'm playing. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.